UK is reaching epidemic levels, and it's costing us billions of pounds every year. Deliberate crashes, bogus personal injury claims, even phantom pets. The fraudsters are risking more and more to make a quick killing. And every year, it's adding up to £50 to your insurance bill. Insurers are fighting back, armed with covert surveillance systems.
There's a subject out the vehicle.
Sophisticated data analysis techniques. And highly skilled, dedicated police units.
Police, don't move, stay where you are!
They're catching the criminals red-handed. All those con men, scammers and cheats on the fiddle, now they're caught in the act. And claim and shame. A heartbreaking boss takes the blame for a dislocated knee.
The eventual outcome was decided by the CCTV footage.
A vigilante road user gets tough on fraud.
I think in Mr. Parker they definitely picked on the wrong individual.
And a specialist fraud-busting team is on the hunt for a crash-for-cash suspect.
It's the police, so can you open the door?
Bendy ones, tall ones, short ones, and sometimes late ones. Buses are a varied bunch, but they have one thing in common. If you're not holding on tight, they can knock you off your feet. That's exactly what happened to this stricken man on the 427 bus in West London. He's just dislocated his knee.
The passenger has stood up, pressed the bell. As he stood up and pressed the bell, the driver has braked very hard, forcibly, causing him to plough into the seat in front of him and hit his knee on the seat. After the passenger's dislocated his knee, he's clearly in some pain. He then stands up and limps to the stairwell of the bus, trying to figure out how he's going to get down the stairs as he now can no longer bend his leg because he's dislocated his knee. He then realises he can't do this, so he decides just to sit down in the stairwell.
Blocking the stairwell, unable to move, and in a lot of pain, the injured passenger alerted the driver.
The bus driver stopped to let some passengers get off, and after he'd closed the doors, he heard a voice, a male voice, saying, "Please, can you stop the bus? Hold on a second." So the bus driver waited.
Due to the severity of his injury, an ambulance was called for the lame passenger. That wasn't the last the bus company was going to hear of the incident.
The gentleman later on presented a claim for personal injury, for compensation for the injuries that he sustained to his knee. He's also stated that he has suffered a loss of earnings 2 months after the incident. He's claiming that he's still unable to work. Although he didn't quantify his claim, I would suspect it would be in the region of between £10,000 to £20,000, including legal fees. So not insubstantial amount.
For incidents like this, First Group self-insure, so they pay out for claims from their own pocket. The supposedly hard-braking bus driver had potentially exposed the bus company to a serious financial blow. But before the passenger could be paid, the bus company had to complete its standard claims process.
When the claim was submitted to us, we decided to investigate, as we do with all claims, using all the evidence available to us.
Evidence like this.
CCTV coverage on buses tends to be good in all areas. On this particular bus, we've got 12 cameras fitted. They will include cameras showing the upstairs deck, front and back, the stairwell. Also downstairs we'll have cameras looking at the passengers at the front and the back. We will have cameras showing people that are boarding the bus. There's a camera in the driver's cab so we can see what attention the driver is paying to what he's doing. We also got cameras on the outside of the bus looking forwards, backwards and along both sides, forward and backwards. So it's a pretty good overall view of all areas on the bus.
If the bus driver had dislocated the passenger's knee with some hard braking, his bosses were about to find out. This is the 427 bus on the evening of the incident. Here comes our passenger now.
He originally got on the bus, he stood at the bottom of the stairs, and then as the bus moved away, he decided to join the upper deck. He went to the back of the bus and sat straight in the middle seat.
Soon, according to his claim, we should expect to see the passenger's knee dislocated after the bus driver slams on his brakes. If you're squeamish, look away now.
When we looked at the footage, we realised that a very different story to the one that the gentleman had informed us was coming to light.
What the bus company saw was bizarre. The passenger engages in a session of martial arts with a much bigger opponent, the 427 bus.
He starts throwing the occasional martial art block and punch into the air.
It's an intimidating sight, one that drives his fellow passengers away from the battle zone.
Some of the passengers start moving away from him. He stands up and becomes a lot more animated. He starts throwing elbow blocks and knee strikes and kicks at the seats and the metal stanchions on the bus. And he really looks like he's trying to take down an invisible opponent.
Far from invisible, the 12-ton enemy was getting the upper hand.
He hugs onto the post and he becomes imbalanced and spins from the post. And it's at this point that he gets his right leg caught between his left leg and the seat, and you can see the twist of his knee, which is where the dislocation then occurs.
The passenger's version of events was a complete lie. His knee hadn't been dislocated due to the bus driver braking sharply. He dislocated his own knee, scrapping with a metal pole.
You can then see he's in some visible discomfort as he sits there, rolls up his trouser leg and starts to hold his knee.
Meanwhile, unaware of events unfolding upstairs, the driver brings the bus to a gentle halt for the next stop.
To be honest, the CCTV footage is probably all we needed to discredit this person's version of events. He's told us what happened in his words. We've looked at the footage. It clearly is very different to what he stated.
It couldn't be any clearer. The passenger's phony claim had been exposed.
The eventual outcome was decided by the CCTV footage. We sent that on to the claimant's solicitors and suggested that they view the footage and then decide whether they still wanted to progress with their claim. We have not heard back from them since.
Claims like this are ultimately paid for by the consumer, from the money they've handed over for their tickets. The bus company doesn't take it lightly.
In the event that this claim was pursued further and they decided that our repudiation was not accepted, we would have run this case to trial, definitely, through the civil courts. And we probably would have sent our information on to the police and asked them if they would consider prosecuting the claimant in this occasion.
An eagle-eyed road user disputes the facts.
Why are you saying 3 injured parties? I said, there's only 2 people in the other car.
And IFED sees potentially case-closing evidence.
We seized a number of handwritten documents which are basically an outline of the accident.
Look at this mess. Mr. Parker, on the left, has just ploughed his vehicle into the back of the red car.
He came out of the car, I got out of the car, looked at the back of his car to see the damage, looked at the front of my car to see the damage.
It was a classic rear-end shunt that left the smaller red car with some damage.
I did ask him if he was okay. He said, oh, yeah. I said, I'm sorry. What else can you do when you hit somebody in the back of a car?
Mr. Parker was happy to take full responsibility for the damage, so handed his details over to the driver of the red car.
The claims that we received totalled about £30,000. That was made up of claims for the solicitor's costs and a very large credit hire claim. The vehicle that was involved in the accident was unroadworthy, couldn't be driven, and they wanted to claim over £8,000 for a replacement vehicle.
A 30 grand wallet. Mr. Parker's insurer was facing a very large outlay. They decided to contact Mr. Parker for more details about the incident.
I got a phone call from my insurance company saying, asking me had I been involved in a traffic accident. So I said, yes. Well, I was at fault because I hit the back of this other car that was stationary.
The insurer had some bad news. Mr. Parker was readily taking the blame for a much bigger claim than he realised.
They said, we don't think this is going to be a straightforward case. They're claiming whiplash injuries against insurance. So I said, well, they seemed all right at the time, but, these things can probably come into effect later.
Mr. Parker took the news well, but then the conversation took a turn.
They said, well, it's going to be 3 injured parties. Are you sure you're not all injured? I said, no, I'm not injured. But why are you saying 3 injured parties? I said, there's only 2 people in the other car. No, there was 3. So I said, there was a driver and his passenger, nobody else in the car.
A whiplash claim from 3 people could substantially add to the size of the claim. Mr. Parker's premium was in danger of rocketing. It could have been Mr. Parker's word against that of the red car driver. But Mr. Parker had an ace up his sleeve.
Well, I'm sorry, they put a claim in for 3 people. And I said, well, I'm sorry, there's not. Well, it's your decision, your argument against theirs. No, it's them against my onboard camera. To which they replied, you had it filmed?
2 years earlier, Mr. Parker had a small crash. Despite no serious dispute as to liability, he felt an onboard camera would have provided useful evidence. It had recorded his latest crash. Understandably, the insurance company were keen to get hold of the footage. It would easily solve the dispute about how many people had been in the red car at the time of the collision.
So we contacted him and arranged to collect the footage from him, which we then viewed when it got back to our offices. I was pleasantly surprised to see how clear the footage was.
Perfectly positioned in the middle of the dashboard, the camera was ready to settle the case. After the collision, the occupants of the red car emerge. 1, 2. Just as Mr. Parker had stated, there were only 2 people in the car at the time of the incident.
And that's really interesting because when the claims were presented to us, we actually get claims from 3 people, including a person that was allegedly in the back of the vehicle at the time of the accident.
So, after the driver of the red car had taken a wallop in the rear and driven away, he had deviously decided to inflate his insurance claim by inventing an extra passenger. But was it that simple? Something in the footage suggested to the insurer that the truth was far more sinister. They watched the video again.
So when I saw this footage, I was quite shocked. And we could see very clearly then exactly what had happened in the accident.
This is the footage from Mr. Parker's car, 40 seconds before impact.
So what we see in the footage is 2 vehicles on the roundabout, very close to each other, unusually close to each other.
Mr. Parker pulls in behind the 2 cars. All 3 vehicles enter the slip road leading to the dual carriageway. 20 seconds to impact. As the cars approach the dual carriageway, the lane they're trying to join is clear of traffic. So why did this happen?
As they were all going towards the point where the slip road joins the dual carriageway, all of a sudden the car in front, the silver car, brakes for absolutely no reason, causing the car directly in front of Mr. Parker to brake very aggressively, and Mr. Parker went into the rear of that car.
The insurance company knew what they were looking at. It looked like a crash for cash attempt. It appears the drivers of the silver and red cars had been working together in an attempt to make money from the innocent Mr. Parker. It seemed they'd been using a standard trick of the fraudster, the 3-car slam-on. This is how it works. 2 gang cars will drive in tandem. After choosing a victim, they move into position. Then, car 1, the decoy, will slam on its brakes for no reason, causing car 2 to react. This makes car 2 look innocent to the victim at the rear. It seemed Mr. Parker had just driven into such a trap.
I was shocked when we actually saw the footage that these people had the audacity to try and target an innocent motorist who was just going about his daily business and try and cause an accident where he could have been hurt and badly injured.
I think it's wrong that they should go down this road, and I think they don't look at the wider picture where they actually could cause serious injury. We were both lucky, or all three of us were lucky in this instance.
Because of the evidence that Mr. Parker had obtained, we were able to very quickly, very clearly reject those claims that had been made.
Instead of making off with £30,000 for their efforts, the driver of the car was given a police caution and didn't receive a penny.
I think in Mr. Parker, they definitely picked on the wrong individual.
Insurance fraud is on the rise, and if you have insurance of any kind, you're footing the bill. But the fraudsters have an ominous enemy.
IFED is a 35-strong unit that works tirelessly to hunt down and prosecute insurance fraudsters wherever they may be throughout England and Wales.
Through a combination of investigation, industry connections and surprise, they've made over 300 arrests and stopped millions of pounds from going to the criminals, money which ultimately goes back in our pockets.
It's highly likely now, if you commit any insurance fraud, you will get caught.
Police, don't move, stay where you are!
It seems the business of crash for cash is booming. Working closely with the insurers, IFED regularly take down these dangerous organised gangs. Today, IFED has one target, a man suspected of masterminding hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of fraudulent motor vehicle claims.
The subject who we're hopefully going to arrest this morning appears to have opened up 5 different policies with an insurance company, the same insurance company. And then shortly thereafter, he's made various claims. But there is a potential loss of over £200,000 when you take into account personal injury claims, etc., etc.
DC Sibley and the IFED team arrive at the home address of the suspect.
Police, can you open up?
Please, can you open that door, please? You can't find the key to open the door. Hey!
Good morning, sir. You found the keys. All right. My name's DC Iceland. I'm from the city. Thank you.
The IFED team is granted access to the property, but the man who has opened the door is not the suspect.
All right, they were your tenants. And when did those tenants move out?
The man IFED is talking to owns the house. He used to rent the property out to the suspect, but has now moved back in.
All right, well,
Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
It wasn't a wasted visit. Information found inside the house has provided IFED with a new address to visit in their hunt for the suspect.
Yeah, Pat, what's the postcode for the next address?
Yeah.
What number? Police officers.
It's bonus time for IFED.
Came here looking for 1. We've come away with 2.
This is the sound of a taus, a bow-stringed instrument from central and northern India. One of the most renowned players of the taus lives in Britain, Ranveer Singh. The highly regarded Ranveer is internationally recognised for his traditional Indian folk music. Like a lot of world-famous musicians, he had a smart car. Frustratingly, in March 2010, the talented Mr. Singh had his car stolen.
The claim was for the theft of his new Audi A5 motorcar. Ranveer Singh alleged that he was visiting friends down in Southall, Middlesex, and had been away overnight and parked the car, and when he returned, the car had gone.
An Audi A5 is not the kind of car you want to have nicked. An average spec A5, fresh off the forecourt, will set you back roughly £30,000.
The police completed their standard inquiries and they concluded that it was a genuine claim, and therefore we were proceeding towards settlement.
Singh had only owned the car for 4 months before it was pinched, but he was fully insured, so he would be back on the road as soon as the insurer had checked out the claim. On receiving the claim, the insurer needed to clear up a couple of things.
There were some discrepancies in terms of circumstances, and as often is the standard process, we sent out an investigator to take a statement from Mr. Singh. There were some discrepancies between the version that he gave to our investigators and the version he gave to us when he actually made the claim. And they revolved around where the car was parked and what he did immediately on discovering the car had been stolen. The main discrepancy being in terms of what street he'd actually parked the car in.
An understandable mistake, especially if you don't live in the area.
There were some concerns, but after doing the initial checks, we thought the claim did occur in the manner it was reported, so we started to proceed towards settlement.
A few weeks of paperwork followed, by which point the insurer was on the brink of the payout to Singh, when, out of the blue, they got a phone call, informing them that the stolen Audi had been located.
4 months after the claim was submitted, in August 2010, we received a call from the police, which was unusual. The car was stopped in Germany by the border police.
Great. Ranbir Singh could have his car back. Not yet. Something inside the car caused the UK police to look more closely into the disappearance of the vehicle.
There were two guys from Cyprus driving the car, and they were stopped, and they had a handwritten note alleging that they had permission to take the car.
Having learned of the note, the UK police gave the insurer a warning.
They basically told us to not pursue repayment, that Mr. Ranbir Singh was under investigation.
That's because the handwritten note in the car was from Ranbir Singh.
They took about 3 months to investigate circumstances, and in October 2010, Mr. Ranbir Singh was arrested.
Upon his arrest, Singh revealed all.
Mr. Ranbir Singh purchased a vehicle in December 2009 and almost immediately started to experience financial difficulties, was having trouble paying back the finance he had on the car, and he alleges that he'd met somebody that said to him, "We can start to help you pay your debts off," and he paid this unknown individual £7,000, deal being that the individual would arrange for a couple of guys to take the car, cross borders into Europe and make the car vanish.
Ranbir Singh, the musician, was now Ranbir Singh, the insurance fraudster. The fallen musician was facing a tough day in court. In December 2011, Ranbir Singh was convicted of fraud and sentenced to 10 months imprisonment.
The unusual twist in this story is that Ranbir Singh was actually a very prominent figure in his local community. He's a very highly acclaimed Indian musician. And for somebody of that standing to attempt insurance fraud is unusual, but really does demonstrate that actually it's a lot more prevalent than perhaps people think.
Today, IFED is tracking down a man suspected of making hundreds of thousands of pounds out of fraudulent motor insurance claims.
But there is a potential loss of over £200,000 when you take into account personal injury claims, etc., etc.
IFED found that the suspect no longer lives at the first location visited, so is following a lead to a new address. They have no idea who or what they will find in the house.
Hello, good morning. Hello, is your mummy around or daddy?
IFED can find no sign of an adult presence in the house.
Hello? Hello, is your mummy and daddy around? Don't be scared, it's the police. Can you open up, please?
It's the police, so can you open the door?
The minutes tick by. The team is still waiting to be given access to the property.
Yeah, it's the police.
I can see one.
Yeah, she's gone upstairs.
It's 3 kids, it's a little girl, that's why.
The longer they wait, the more likely it is that the suspect could destroy potential evidence.
She's down the toilet being flushed.
This baby, this toddler, and there's a little girl. Well, hiya, police officers.
Hello there, good morning, sir.
From their extensive research, IFED know they have found their suspect.
My name's DC Einsman, River City Police. I'm looking for you, so I'd like to step in and talk to you. Okay, I'm going to arrest you, okay? You're under arrest in connection with fraudulent insurance policies for motor vehicles and subsequent claims made on them. I'm arresting you for the prompt and effective investigation of these offences.
The suspect's been arrested, so we're going to do a search now of the property to see if we can find any more documentation, anything relevant to the offences. He's not particularly happy that we're there, but that's all we can do. And see what we can find.
The suspect wasn't where IFED expected to find him, but DC Sibley's team searched the house they'd been led to. Filming access is restricted to the unplanned raid location. Within minutes, the search yields potential evidence.
We're in one of the main bedrooms at the moment, and it's just sackfuls of paperwork, documentation, quite a lot of it relating to what we're investigating. We seized a number of notebooks with handwritten notes in them showing names, addresses of possible claimants. Seized a large number of certificates of motor insurance, all linked to the index numbers and names of the people that have made the claims.
The search of the main bedroom has become red hot. DC Sibley has some potentially incriminating exhibits in her hands.
We seized a number of handwritten documents which are basically an outline of the accident. This would be a map of the collision of the roads and where the collision took place, showing obviously the roundabout, the vehicles involved, and street names, and actually how the accident happened. And this is quite common, we find this quite a lot. But we found a number of those. 3 I've got here, as I say, the driver details of the third-party vehicle, victims' details, insurance company details, and obviously full description of how the accident happened with a nice little diagram.
The search of the main bedroom is complete. The suspect IFED came for is taken away for further questioning. Out of the blue, DC Sibley's attention is drawn to another occupant of the house.
We came in here looking for one person, but when during the search, the other male in the premises has sort of stated to me that the documentation is his, it's in his bag, and it's in his bedroom. So because of what we found, he's been arrested as well on suspicion of fraud by false representation. So we came here looking for one, we've come away with 2, and a lot of information and evidence. There is a lot of documentation in there relating to fraud, in my opinion, so they're going to have a lot of questions to answer.
IFED has got more than the suspect it came for. It could be driving away with the evidence it needs to seal another case against the menace of insurance fraud. Insurance fraud in the UK is reaching epidemic levels, and it's costing us billions of pounds every year. Deliberate crashes, bogus personal injury claims, even phantom pets. The fraudsters are risking more and more to make a quick killing. And every year, it's adding up to £50 to your insurance bill. Insurers are fighting back, armed with covert surveillance systems.
There's a subject out the vehicle.
Sophisticated data analysis techniques. And highly skilled, dedicated police units.
Police, don't move, stay where you are!
They're catching the criminals red-handed. All those con men, scammers and cheats on the fiddle, now they're caught in the act. And claim and shame. Today, CCTV catches out a fraudster trying to claim a huge payout for an accident that never happened.
It just makes you think, well, this is a clear fabrication. There is nothing to suggest this gentleman's injuries have been sustained, especially not in the way he has stated.
A conman who goes on the run is caught by the elite police unit, IFED.
Mr. Begum then skipped bail, but was later found at his mother's property, hiding in the loft.
And the Met Traffic Unit challenges a suspect.
It's not negotiable. You have been arrested, and you are going to be taken to a police station, okay?
We Brits love a bus ride. We take around 5 billion bus journeys every year. But occasionally, a ride down the high street can turn into a tragedy. Lee Ingram of the Transportation Claims Division of First Group worked on the case of a minor collision which had been filmed by the outward-looking onboard camera.
The bus approaches a stationary Land Rover, and as it's passing, it manages to catch the driver's side wing mirror with the side of the bus and continue on, bending the wing mirror back. It doesn't actually cause any damage to the wing mirror. The glass comes out of the housing, but neither the glass or the housing are damaged, and it's just a case of snapping the glass back in. There is no damage to the bus at all. You will see that the driver of the Land Rover, as the bus is passing, notices what's happening, and he can be seen clearly to be banging on the side of the bus. Then someone gets out of the Land Rover and goes to the front of the bus as he stops a bit further up and just lets him know what's happened.
Not long afterwards, the company was presented with a claim for an injury caused by the accident. But rather than coming from the driver of the car, the claim was from an unexpected source. This passenger on the top floor of the bus. His version of events was very different, as his phone call to the insurers shows.
What happened was, the bus driver was driving fine. There was a car parked on double yellow, which caused the bus driver to, and from what I see, he just opened the door, and he caused the bus driver to brake very sharp, causing me to hit my head and falling down. After 45 minutes, I was having a lot of back and neck pain. Called a cab to hospital where I was advised by the doctor that it would be muscle injury. The pain has got a lot worse, so I can't do anything apart from going to a toilet. Having difficulty getting dressed, can't lift my son up, hard to walk up the stairs, can't play sport, and can't do much. Have made an appointment with my doctor for stronger painkillers. I'm really upset and feel hopeless and depressed as I'm in a lot of pain and can't do nothing at all.
In his opinion, he has sustained what he considers to be life-changing injuries.
This meant that the company could be liable for a potentially huge payout.
He was looking to build a substantial claim for future care, care of personal hygiene, maybe a future element of childcare and child support.
A minor prank causing life-changing injuries to one passenger just didn't ring true. A full-scale investigation was launched by Lee's team, and the CCTV from inside the bus was reviewed. It proved to be the killer piece of evidence. The claimant can be seen sitting on the top floor of the bus on the left-hand side.
When I first saw this footage of the passenger in question, I did review the footage on several occasions because I thought I must have missed the incident he's referring to.
But he hadn't. The reaction of the passengers looking out of the windows shows the exact moment of impact. At the same time, the other camera shows exactly what happened to the claimant. Nothing.
The gentleman who is making this claim does not at any stage fall to the floor. He stands up after having travelled to his destination, goes to the top of the stairwell, goes down the stairs, speaks to the driver as he gets off the bus, and then leaves the bus. There is no suggestion or any indication of a fall, as he is alleging.
The pictures confirmed what they'd suspected all along, that he'd never been injured, and his claim was a work of fiction.
It just makes you think, well, this is a clear fabrication. There is nothing to suggest this gentleman's injuries have been sustained, especially not in the way he has stated.
The video evidence revealed that his story was a complete lie, but as it turned out, the passenger would have found it difficult to pursue his claim.
As the damage to the Range Rover was negligible, and the damage to the bus was non-existent, neither the Range Rover insurers or First Group were claiming off of each other. So you had a case where no one was admitting liability. The gentleman in question wasn't sure who he could make a claim off of, and I expect when he thought about whether his injuries were genuine or not, he decided there was really no one to pursue this claim against, and he wasn't prepared to risk it.
It was clear that there was no case to answer, and the claimant was never heard from again. The Met Traffic Unit are executing a raid on an accident management company where not everything is as it seems.
You don't work here, do you?
No, but I do look after the things.
Okay, well that's not what you said earlier, so do you want to wait outside?
And an attempted motor insurance fraud is stopped in its tracks.
When it's so clear, as on these particular occasions, it makes our job very, very easy.
The Met Traffic Unit is headed up by DI Dave Hindmarsh. With a growing number of organised gangs using London's roads as their hunting ground, DI Hindmarsh and his team are committed to slashing car crime.
We search for people who are wanted for serious offences. My team have made 300 arrests in the last 2.5 years, which is around about 50 operations. Every one of those operations will have resulted in a prosecution.
Their aim is to make our roads as safe as possible.
You have the most serious types of cash for crash, which is the induced collision. And this is primarily where gang members, because it is organised criminal gangs involved in this, who will go out onto the roads with two cars. They'll drive in tandem looking for their victim. They'll position themselves in front, and then the decoy car, which will be the lead car, will brake hard. That gives the middle car, the one that they want to be damaged, a reason to brake, catch their victim out, and they will run into the back. And that is a typical cash for crash scenario. The insurance industry have estimated that it costs them somewhere in the range of £392 million per year, but I think it's probably bigger than that. It is an extremely dangerous way of earning some money because you are putting innocent members of the public at risk.
Intelligence has led DI Dave Hindmarsh and his team to the home of a suspect thought to be connected to a case of crash for cash.
We're just on our way to execute a search warrant of an address on a person that we believe has been involved in at least 2 induced collisions. The intelligence we have is this person's had 2 crashes, all with similar circumstances, within the last year, and there's some evidence that suspect us to believe that he's been putting through false claims. So we're just arriving now.
The team are out at the break of dawn, so they can maintain the element of surprise. As they approach the house, they cover all exits.
Kitchen lights on, Roger.
Is the police? Yes, please. Good morning, I'm DC Roger Crawley from the Metropolitan Police Specialist Crimes Operation. I'd like to speak to you about 2 induced collisions that occurred last year. Accidents in which I believe you were involved and which I believed were deliberately staged. I'd like to come and speak to you. I've got a search warrant here to search your premises.
The team is let into the house and they explain what's going to happen.
Okay. What we're going to be searching for is documentation in relation to that collision, passports, any other documentation, mobile phones that may assist me with my investigation.
One thing I don't understand, like you are here to investigate either the accident being caused deliberately.
That's right.
Okay, that's what you are here for.
That's right. I suspect they are deliberately staged accidents.
Okay, well, I am driving since 8 years in this country and I've never ever been involved in any accident except these 2 accidents which happened last year.
After initially querying the situation, the suspect finally indicates where they can find the documentation they need.
Big issue. There are a set of documents over there, you can have a look, okay? To all the documents. As far as the accident concerned, of course, I drive on the road.
My suggestion now is he's arrested.
The team confer and make the decision to arrest the suspect.
Okay, you're under arrest, you do not have to say anything, but it may harm the defence if you do not mention one question, something which you later on in court need to be so late given evidence. You understand that?
This doesn't make any sense to me.
A formal interview will take place at the police station, but the suspect wants to discuss the allegations there and then.
not I done.
You will be given your opportunity when we get down to the police
Yeah, I
station and I
understand.
interview you to give your version of events. And if you wish to tell me all about
The team needs to avoid a long discussion, so they're not wasting
But I've told
valuable
you,
time.
it's not negotiable. You have been arrested and you are going to be taken to a police station, okay?
Well, I don't understand. Okay, you can take me to the police station, I don't mind, because I know I'm right, so I don't need to scare of anything.
Listen to me. The officer explained why you've been arrested, okay? You will be going to a police station, so you might as well just sit there until we finish doing the search. We'll take you down to the police station, then everything will be explained to you fully.
Unexpectedly,
okay? And you'll be
the
interviewed,
suspect
and you'll be
then
given your
questions
chance
whether
to
they
then
are who they say
give
they
your
are.
account.
Really?
We've showed you our warrant
I've
cards.
showed you my warrant card. Do you want to see it again? I'll show it to you again.
But you're arresting me with something I never done.
It's probably best if you just be quiet.
It seems like the suspect is using delaying tactics, and the interruption means that over 20 minutes have passed before the search finally gets underway.
We've entered the premises using the search warrant. The man that's in the living room has now been arrested for believed submitting fraudulent personal injury claims. He's going to be coming back to the police station with us where he'll be interviewed formally. We're basically looking for paperwork pertaining to insurance claims, insurance certificates, documentation for specific vehicles.
Eventually, they conclude the search and are ready to take the suspect away and remove the potential evidence.
So if you just do as we say, then there'll be no need to handcuff you. All right, brilliant. We came looking for paperwork for insurance claims and having just a look through the documentations briefly. That's what we've got. So certainly the objective today was to find some paperwork, which we have, and to arrest the person who's been arrested. So I think the objective has been complete.
According to one phone company, 700,000 mobiles are lost or stolen every year. Luckily, most gadgets are covered by household insurance. But with so many claims in the system, it's easy to believe that some fraudulent ones could slip through unnoticed. At least that's what Faisal Begum thought. He submitted multiple claims from people who didn't exist. Tom Gardner from Aviva worked on the case.
In the first place, our systems created an alert.
The alert was produced because Begum had submitted two similar claims close together. Although he'd used different names, the claims handlers identified a match in other personal details. An investigation was launched, and recordings of the phone calls from the two similar claims were retrieved. What they found confirmed their suspicions.
When they listened to calls, it was quite clear that there were a number of claims being reported by the same person.
How can I help?
It's William Daniels here. I'm calling regarding the settlement of my claim.
Have you got your claim number there, sir?
Yes, it's 11 Mike Hotel Oscar 015344.
And if you could just confirm for me your full name.
Yes, it's Mr. Fabiano Feria.
If I could take your policy number.
It's Mike Hotel Oscar 0511 40518.
The claims handlers passed on their findings to Aviva's Claims Fraud Intelligence team.
The voice of Mr. Begum was very distinctive, so you could tell it was the same person in each call.
In the phone calls from the increasingly familiar voice, the caller also noted a keen interest in the exact terms and conditions of the policies.
The other question I have, in the policy, theft from unattended road vehicles, does that mean if somebody breaks into a car and steals something, that the limit would be 1,500?
That's right, yeah.
Because I've reported a claim yesterday.
Right.
The items that were stolen are over that limit.
The concern was that these two claims were the tip of the iceberg. And so it proved when the investigation turned up an additional 20 household insurance claims, which were very similar to the first two. Although most of the claims originated from Walsall, proving further links was a challenge.
All of the names and addresses were different, so it's difficult to show that it was one person behind these.
They went back to the calls from these cases too. They provided damning evidence.
Listening to the call recordings, it was quite clear that this was the same gentleman involved. So we could try and link all 20 cases.
It was obvious that they'd uncovered a complex web of fake identities, all invented by one man. The people supposedly making the claims didn't exist.
Mr. Begum, or Alexander Brazil and Dr. Shah, as he was also known, submitted over 22 claims in total within a period of several months.
Another giveaway was that the claims were all very similar.
Typically, his claims were for mobile devices, tablets and laptops, which he claimed had been left at takeaways or stolen on trains. The claims were generally supported by a lot of documentation, but our investigations revealed that most of those were fake or fraudulent. Each claim was typically for several £1,000s. In total, he submitted 22 claims with a value of over £50,000.
All the evidence pointed to fraud on a massive scale, and the company contacted the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department. The IFED team had initially been investigating Begum because of another lead, and it appeared that his fanciful storytelling had moved up a gear. DS Craig Mullish worked on the case.
He reported that his son was very violently robbed at one of the London railway stations that needed medical treatment. The allegations made were investigated by the British Transport Police, and it very quickly came to light that the story that we were told was not accurate and alarm bells were ringing.
This led the IFED team to work with Aviva to investigate other insurance claims made by Faisal Begum. They revealed evidence of a pattern of fraudulent behaviour, and they decided to take action.
They obtained a warrant for Mr. Begum's arrest and carried out a raid on his property.
There was no cooperation and we had to force entry.
Aviva wasn't expecting to hear from him again, but several days later he got in contact.
Astonishingly, telephoned Aviva again to make a claim for the damage to his front door that IFED had caused whilst raiding the property.
Basically, our front door was damaged. There was a law enforcement agency who forced entry into our property for something which I don't know.
Despite the fact that the door had been broken as a result of his fraudulent behaviour, he still thought he deserved a payout.
I think the fact that Mr. Begum actually claimed for the damage to his door just showed the audacity of the fraud.
There really is no bounds to what this man will do to submit and claim fraudulent monies from the insurance companies.
But the insurer was onto him, and the claim went nowhere. At this point, Faisal Begum finally realised that the game was up, and he went on the run. Unfortunately for him, he made a poor choice of hiding place.
Mr. Begum then skipped bail, but was later found at his mother's property, hiding in the loft.
Faisal Begum was brought to trial, and the weight of evidence meant that the outcome was never in doubt.
Mr. Begum was charged with 14 counts of fraud and was sentenced to 2 years in prison, which we felt was a fair and proportionate sentence.
This is a great result. It gives a great message out that neither the insurance industry nor IFED will tolerate insurance fraud, and this, I'm sure, will be a deterrent to any future fraudster out there that thinks insurance fraud is an easy touch. It clearly isn't.
Roundabouts are statistically safer than other types of intersection, but they still see their fair share of accidents. Susan Evans of Insurers Admiral worked on a case involving a policyholder who'd been involved in one such collision.
She said she was approaching a mini roundabout, thought that she had enough time to clear the mini roundabout before the other car made its turn, but unfortunately she didn't, and it resulted in a collision.
The accident resulted in damage to both vehicles, and the driver of the other car decided to pursue a claim.
It was alleged that there were actually 2 passengers within that car as well, and that both passengers had unfortunately been injured in the incident.
In line with the claims procedure, specific details of the injuries were provided.
Claims that we were faced with from the alleged passengers in the vehicle were whiplash claims that were around about £2,000 a piece in terms of value.
But the collision took place here, on a bustling high street during the day, which means one thing: eyewitnesses.
One actually came forward and said that they were adamant that there was no passengers in the vehicle that our policyholder had collided with. So we had a written statement to confirm there was nobody in that car apart from the driver.
Alarm bells started to ring, and the insurer decided that further investigation was needed. So they went through the CCTV they'd sourced from the local council. The footage reveals a very different version of events. The claimant can be seen driving down towards the mini roundabout, whilst the policyholder approaches from the other direction at the bottom of frame. The claimant starts to turn right, but the policyholder is going straight on, and they collide. What they saw next proved to be a crucial piece of evidence. They both exit their vehicles, examine the damage, and exchange details. But at no point does anyone else get out of the claimant's car.
If we look carefully at the footage, I think anyone involved in an incident of that nature is probably going to get out of the vehicle, have a look at the damage, perhaps assist the driver to try and get details from the other party. You don't see any passengers exiting from the car whatsoever.
The CCTV proved that there was only one person in the car, and that the claim for 2 personal injury payouts was a ploy to get more money. Admiral confronted the claimant's solicitors with the evidence.
They were clearly quite shocked at the start, but being faced with the irrefutable evidence that the CCTV footage presented, the claims were dropped immediately.
If the claimant thought they could walk away with money they didn't deserve, they were wrong.
There are penalties that they will have to pay. They will be recorded on a database, and within the background you also have the fact that the police might pick it up as a prosecution.
It's estimated that there are almost 2 million CCTV cameras in the UK, which means that fraudsters are increasingly being caught out by film evidence.
When it's so clear, as on these particular occasions, and there's clear evidence that those people are not in the cars, it makes our job very, very easy.
The Met Traffic Unit are on the road again, this time to execute a raid on a company they believe helps organise crash-for-cash collisions to create fake insurance claims.
This morning we're going down to an accident management company. We've got evidence which suggests that the company had been involved in 2 induced collisions, and part of today is to take all of their paperwork and to sift through it at a later stage to identify other induced collisions. So at this stage we're not really sure. It could just be as simple as these 2 collisions. However, I suspect that we'll find evidence relating to more.
The team arrives at the scene and approach the company's rented office. They're working against the clock. But first, there's the small matter of gaining access.
There's no one here, which is typical of accident management companies when we arrive. So the 2 options we have is we'll try and get hold of the owner, get them to come round and open up. If not, we'll open up ourselves. We shan't be leaving without what we came for.
They attempt to make contact with the owner of the company, but draw a blank. Finally, they get through to the landlord of the property.
Hello, sir. My name's Andy Collins. I'm a detective constable who works for the Metropolitan Police.
The owner of the company is proving hard to track down, but the landlord should be able to let D.I. Hindmarsh and his team into the office.
Could you get yourself down here as soon as possible?
Just then, a third party approaches the officers.
Come with me and speak to my colleague, please.
I'm just wondering how you've suddenly turned up, that's all. I'm wondering how you've just suddenly appeared.
No, because like yesterday I was at the office.
Yeah.
He claims not to be an employee, but has come to pick up some paperwork.
Okay, she's the secretary, yeah?
The Met Traffic Unit is no closer to gaining entry, but then the landlord of the property arrives in person.
I've got a door key, but not a shutter key.
Oh dear.
He's nothing to do with the company under investigation and cooperates with the team to try and gain access to the office.
Have we got a hooligan? There we are, the man with the bar.
Eventually, the landlord finds a shortcut.
Seriously?
I said to him.
And finally, they're in.
Thank you.
The search is interrupted by the man they first spoke to on the street. He's followed them into the office.
Wait, if you want to wait outside, you don't work here, do you?
No, but I do look after the music.
Okay, well that's not what you said earlier, so do you want to wait outside? You said you came here to collect papers from the business. Yeah. No, you just wait outside, yeah?
Okay.
At last, they're able to search the company office in earnest. Although the team is investigating a small number of specific incidents, they suspect that the company is connected to more, and they hope to find evidence of this.
Well, we're just going through all the desks in here looking for fraudulent motor insurance claims. We have certain collisions, accidents that we know about that have happened that we will need the paperwork for. Hopefully we'll find them when we go through it more thoroughly, but at this stage we can take everything, then we can investigate the claims and see if they may be suspect as well.
Before long, the team makes an interesting discovery.
Some stuff has been found in the bin over there with some dates from an insurance company that's written to this company questioning some claims that have been made, and that's ended up in the bin. So we'll have to look at that and see what their concerns were, speak with that insurance company and obviously investigate that collision as well. You find things that you're looking for, and it's just like putting together a jigsaw really, I suppose.
As the potential evidence is bagged and recorded, another discovery is made.
The guy that turned up first thing this morning that was denying actually working here, this is actually his desk, he's admitted now, so he does actually work here.
It's not just paperwork that the team is after. The company's computer equipment will be examined too.
The accident management company is now closed because we've taken away their computers and all their documentation, so it'll be difficult for them to continue practicing. In relation to further inquiries to this matter, it's an ongoing investigation, and there is likely that we'll be looking to execute further search warrants and hopefully discover more evidence of any wrongdoing.
The Met Traffic Unit is dedicated to making our roads as safe as possible, and every fraudster they take down moves them one step closer to that goal. Insurance fraud in the UK is reaching epidemic levels, and it's costing us billions of pounds every year. Deliberate crashes, bogus personal injury claims, even phantom pets. The fraudsters are risking more and more to make a quick killing. And every year, it's adding up to £50 to your insurance bill. Insurers are fighting back, armed with covert surveillance systems.
The subject out the vehicle.
Sophisticated data analysis techniques. And highly skilled dedicated police units.
Stay where you are!
They're catching the criminals red-handed. All those con men, scammers and shoots on the fiddle, now they're caught in the act. And claim and shame. Today, a country pub goes up in smoke and things get heated for a pair of fire-starting fraudsters.
It showed Dean and Melinda looking for the bag that we had recovered, and a most unusual response to that, almost hysterical.
The Specialist Police Unit IFED shuts down a gang of motor insurance fraudsters.
I don't think they expected to get caught so quickly, but ultimately most fraudsters will get caught.
And the conman's elaborate Stag cover story starts to unravel.
Despite travelling to Edinburgh for a Stag weekend, there was no luggage whatsoever in the minibus.
In July 2011, a huge fire broke out at the Toll House pub in Lymington in the New Forest. The flames spread rapidly, cutting off people trapped on the upper floor. The emergency services were called to what had quickly become a life or death situation. Justin Norris is from Hampshire Police.
The fire was in the early hours of the morning and we attended the scene within 5 minutes of the call from Hampshire Fire and Rescue Service.
With the fire threatening to rage out of control, the first priority was to get everyone out safely. Duncan White is a crew manager with Hampshire Fire and Rescue Service who attended the scene.
It was a very severe fire. You could see why the people were trapped in the upstairs rooms. The fire in the stairwell was the reason why the people were trapped at the first floor, because it compromised their means of escape.
At great risk to their own safety, the fire officers entered the building and managed to get everyone out, undoubtedly saving their lives. According to the emergency call from Dean and Melinda Thomas, who owned the pub, the devastating blaze was the result of foul play.
They suspected a burglary or somebody who tried to break into their premises. We started to treat it as a scene of a crime.
The fire was so intense, it was a miracle that no one had been seriously hurt.
The whole pub was completely 100% smoke damaged.
With the blaze finally out, the police began their investigation by talking to the owners about the events of that night, in particular the suspected burglary.
Dean had been awoken, had come downstairs, having heard a noise of smashing glass, looked around the premises, didn't find anything to start with, went back upstairs. Within half an hour, the fire alarms had gone off. He then alerted the rest of the people in the house, and he discovered a fire downstairs.
Dean Thomas believed that the burglar was after the pub's takings.
He reported that some money had been stolen from downstairs and that they had tried to cover their tracks by causing this fire.
However, there was a fundamental problem with his version of events.
It's highly unusual for a burglar to break into a premise and to set fire to it without any other motive or reason to do so.
Dean's story simply didn't ring true, and suspicions were immediately aroused. The police examined the scene of the fire for further evidence, starting with the smashed window, which, according to Dean, was the burglar's entry point.
You couldn't have possibly got into the premises without disturbing the glass fragments on this windowsill. They weren't disturbed at all.
Their next discovery threw even more doubt on Dean's story.
We found a petrol can that was recovered from in an outhouse that had been concealed behind some items, behind a case, which was unusual as well.
This tied in with evidence from the fire officers who'd fought the blaze.
In a normal domestic fire, it's a grey smoke, but this was a very black smoke.
The colour of the smoke and the discovery of the hidden petrol can seemed to indicate that the fire had been fuelled by an accelerant such as petrol. Dean's story was unravelling fast, and the police looked into the couple's finances as a possible motivation for arson.
It became really apparent quite quickly that Thomases were in significant debt.
Evidence was mounting on all sides that the fire had been deliberately started by the Thomases for an insurance payout, but conclusive proof was lacking until a chance discovery in the grounds of the property.
We recover a bag of clothing. We don't know whose clothing this is, but we discover it's outer clothing, sort of tracksuit bottoms and a top, and some domestic gloves. We didn't know why it was there, we didn't know whose it was, but we suspected it was something to do with the fire.
Sensing a chance to catch the culprits red-handed, the police set up surveillance of the area with a hidden camera.
We thought that whoever put the bag there might come back to the scene to try and recover it, to dispose of it, because we believed at the time this was the bag of clothing that had been used to start the fire.
Unlike Fraudsters, the camera never lies, and the surveillance footage meant that Dean Thomas's story went up in smoke.
It showed Dean and Melinda looking for the bag that we had recovered, and a most unusual response to that. Almost hysterical. It looks like they're arguing about it, and Melinda has thrown her arms around a little bit as well.
Melinda was confronted by the police, and even then the lies continued.
She said in an interview to us that the reason why she reacted that way was because she believed police officers had disturbed the grave of her dog.
But she convinced no one, and it was obvious that her hysterical response was because she knew they'd been found out. The fire had been started deliberately, and they hadn't done a very good job of covering their tracks.
It was quite clear that the motive was financial. They had wanted to get out of the contract with the brewery, whose premises as it was, and already done that, already asked to do that prior to the fire taking place.
The case eventually reached court, but despite the weight of evidence against them, unbelievably, the couple maintained their innocence.
During the trial, they pleaded not guilty. and it was a jury that convicted them. Dean Thomas was sentenced to 6 years in prison. Melinda Thomas was sentenced to 3 years in prison.
Not only had they been driven by greed, but worse, they'd endangered the lives of the people in the pub and the firefighters who put out the fire. The heavy sentences reflected the seriousness of their crime.
Unfortunately for them, unfortunately for everyone else, the truth came out and we found out what happened in the end.
A fraud gang is scuppered after making an outrageous claim.
To put a claim in on a vehicle that they were driving and or involved with that did not have damage consistent to what's been portrayed is rather foolish.
And its insurance company in one corner, fake Olympic boxer in the other.
It's not untypical of insurance fraudsters to have aliases. I guess what's surprising in this case is that he sought to bring such attention to himself.
Combating the ever-increasing threat of insurance fraud is an elite police squad known as IFED, the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department.
IFED is a 35-strong unit that works tirelessly to hunt down and prosecute insurance fraudsters wherever they may be throughout England and Wales.
From now on, fraudsters need to watch their back.
In only 18 months, we've arrested over 300 people. We will start to see a reduction in the insurance fraud in this country, which is ultimately what we're aiming for. It's highly likely now, if you commit any insurance fraud, you will get caught.
In 2012, IFED travelled to Torquay to carry out a raid on a gang of fraudsters believed to be behind various multi-vehicle accidents. The collisions were staged in order to cash in on motor insurance policies. It all started with a seemingly innocuous accident in 2009. Mike Brown from Direct Line was on the case.
The accident in 2009 involved 3 vehicles. One was driven by Mr Baker, a second vehicle driven by Mr Cash, and a third vehicle driven by Miss Shears. Mr Baker lost control of his vehicle and collided with the 2 vehicles driven by Miss Shears and Mr Cash.
At that stage, there was nothing to suggest fraud.
No suspicious circumstances surrounding that claim. It entered the claims process and the claims were eventually settled for all 3 vehicles.
DC Kate Sidley from IFED also worked on the case.
Claims were going in for personal injury, damage to cars, damage to property within the cars, loss of earnings, hire vehicles, whatever basically they could put a claim in for, they were putting a claim in.
In total, all 3 claims were settled for approximately £15,000.
And there the matter would have rested, had it not been for another accident 2 years later. Striking similarities to the claim from 2009 led to an investigation being launched.
Mr Baker appeared to be the offending driver on both occasions. There was 3 vehicles again involved. All parties knew each other, raised concerns.
All those involved in the accidents were linked and alarm bells started to ring. The cars from the second accident were then examined by an expert employed by the insurers.
The crash investigator basically said how they're saying the accident happened didn't match up with the damage to the vehicles. So in his opinion, it was unlikely that it actually took place.
To put a claim in on a vehicle that they were driving and or involved with that did not have damage consistent to what's been portrayed is rather foolish.
They'd made a big mistake, and this alerted the insurers to other aspects of the claim which raised suspicions, not least the huge amount of money involved.
In total, £80,000 was the amount of claims that would have been paid if we had not have intervened.
That intervention came in the form of an early morning IFED raid. The team started with a visit to Jonathan Baker, the man who'd driven into the back of the other vehicles in both the accidents. It was 6:30 in the morning when the IFED team arrived at the address. The father of the suspect came out to meet them and wanted to know what was going on.
I'm from the City of London Police. It's my ID, sir. We're looking for Mr. Jonathan Baker. What's this for? We want to speak to him in connection to an insurance fraud that we believe he's involved in. That's all the detail I can give you, sir.
Right.
Okay. I can speak to him more about it, but I can't yourself. I take it you are, sorry, you're his father?
I'm father, yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
he is.
in bed and he doesn't need to be disturbed.
Well, we need to speak to him, sir.
he revealed that his son was in, and Baker eventually came to talk to IFED.
I understand you're off work at the moment.
That's right, yeah.
Okay, we need to speak to you today. Okay, we need to take you to the local to Torquay and interview you in relation to a matter that's been referred to us.
Right.
In relation to what we suspect is insurance fraud dating back to January of last year.
Right, okay.
Okay. That's it, basically.
Yeah, Jonathan Baker, you're under arrest, 7 o'clock, okay? You have Sally Morning, if you're not mentioned in the question, subject to in court, and if you can do so, maybe give any evidence, okay?
He was taken down to the local police station for further questioning.
All right, mate, just take your seat in there behind the passenger seat, please.
While the IFED team was travelling to their next raid location, they got some good news from the station.
He's just been booked in and just been put in a cell. He just came out with it, indicated that he knew what it was all about, and said that he didn't see any point in lying about any involvement. So I don't know what he's going to say on the interview. We obviously didn't question him any further, but he asked if we were picking up any of the others that were involved, was his exact words. So what exactly that means, I don't know.
It was the breakthrough the case needed. Although the raid had started well, there were still 2 crucial arrests to make, and the team had to stay focused. When they arrived at the next address, they immediately knew they were at the right place, because parked outside was a vehicle that was central to the case.
Oh, his car's there. That Mazda is pretty much what it's all about.
There's a bright green Mazda RX-7, which had been modified at the garage. It won numerous awards for the modifications to it and was on the front of several magazines.
The car belonged to Carter Oram, the man involved in the second crash. IFED believed that this had been deliberately staged to fund expensive modification work on his Mazda. Despite the presence of his car, the suspect believed to be at the second location wasn't Carter Oram. It was a man thought to have allowed his details to be used for one of the fraudulent insurance claims. The team secured the exits and prepared to enter through the main door. After they'd identified themselves, the suspect cooperated by letting them in.
Firstly, okay, I need to speak to you today regarding an allegation that's been made where it's alleged that you're involved in a conspiracy to defraud insurance companies. Right? Hear me out, yeah? Okay, so in relation to that offence and that allegation, I'm arresting you on suspicion of conspiracy to defraud, and we'll be looking to interview you later on this morning.
Although he wasn't one of the ringleaders, a search of the property revealed that he was involved in more than just suspected insurance fraud.
A number of things were seized there, including the cultivation of cannabis, which the local police dealt with.
How many plants you got? 9. I'm further arresting you on suspicion of cultivation of cannabis.
I'm proper scared now.
It's all right.
I don't like dealing with people on the street because I smoke weed like I've got my own bombs. I just sit in here and smoke weed.
The team then moved on to the final and most important location, a garage called Shell Shot, which was linked to all the suspects and all the cars.
When we delved deeper into the second claim in 2011, it became apparent that Shell Shot were clearly involved in some form of fraudulent activity.
The whole fraud centred around this main garage, Shell Shot, and all the vehicles either were from there or passed through there, but were borrowed and used in the contrived accidents and then done up and returned to their rightful owners or paid for by the insurance companies to be repaired.
Shell Shot was owned by Carter Oram, the owner of the Mazda, and Richard Cash. Both of these men were directly involved in the induced collision. And it was here that the IFED team hoped to apprehend their final suspect, Carter Oram.
Mr. Jared, hello mate. I'm Mark Folsom from the City of London Police, okay, Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department. Right. Okay. I need to speak to you about an allegation that's been made, okay, where the allegation is that you have conspired with others to defraud the insurance company, all right, namely RBS, all right? So in relation to that, okay, I'm going to have to arrest you, okay? You don't have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention, when questioned, something which you like relying in court. Okay. Anything you do say may be given evidence. And that's in relation, like I say, conspiracy to defraud, okay? We'll have to take you away now, okay? Is your boss here, or are you in charge, or whatever?
I'm in charge, yeah.
Their hunch that he'd be at work paid off, and he was taken away for further questioning.
Right, let's stick you in the cage, mate. And we'll take you back to Torquay. All right, jump in.
The team had made 3 arrests and recovered a wealth of evidence, but the complexity of the fraud meant that there were still people to track down.
The other suspects were arrested later on in Devon, and one suspect attended Bishopsgate Police Station voluntarily.
IFED's swift action ensured that the scam was shut down before the fraud could get any bigger. By April 2013, IFED had collected enough evidence to bring the main players to justice. Baker was sent down for 6 months, and Richard Cash for 14. Carter Oram received a 6-month jail term suspended for 12 months. Jennifer Shears, for her involvement in the first crash, was handed a 2-month prison sentence, suspended for 12 months.
Direct line groups has a zero tolerance to fraudulent insurance activity. I don't think they expected to get caught so quickly, but ultimately most fraudsters will get caught.
In 2012, Olympic fever was everywhere. For athletes who'd been chosen to represent their countries, this was the fulfillment of a long-held ambition. This was especially true for one young Afghani man living in West London. Against all the odds, Daz Siddiqui had made the Afghan boxing squad, and his inspirational story was starting to gain attention. In an article in The Sun, he was quoted as saying, "I know I won't be one of the favourites to win a medal, but being a competitor at the 2012 Olympics seemed just an impossible dream." He was right, but not in the way he intended. The whole thing was a total fabrication. Siddiqui was actually a serial fraudster and fantasist. Tom Gardner from Aviva worked on the case.
It's not untypical of insurance fraudsters to have aliases. I guess what's surprising in this case is that he sought to bring such attention to himself.
In truth, Daz Siddiqui was a con man who lived in a fantasy world. He'd invented multiple personas to cheat money out of insurance companies, but his lies were uncovered by Aviva's fraud detection team, who spotted a number of suspicious claims.
We were able to identify matches between addresses and bank accounts, which originally alerted us to the fraud. And as we investigated that further, we were able to unravel the full scale of his fraud.
He'd set up a web of fake identities.
Majid Siddiqui went by a number of aliases, including Daz Siddiq, Owen Hart, and Kevin Heartbreak.
But Siddiqui's fraud went much further than just inventing fake names. DC John Herlihy from the City of London's Police Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department also worked on the case.
He tried to cover his tracks to some extent by changing his name regularly by deed poll. In a 2-year period, he had anything up to 6 to 8 names. In fact, I imagine that he has got one name that he keeps to himself, but he's been known by so many different names that perhaps only he will ever know what his real name is.
But he didn't stop at fake identities. His financial arrangements revealed a web of lies too.
In total, we were able to identify 23 bank accounts. The bank accounts were used in the first place to obtain insurance under bogus names and addresses, and then also later to receive payments from claims.
Siddiqui was committing fraud on a massive scale.
So in total, we're aware of 46 claims which were presented for bogus injuries, which on a full liability basis would have had a value of about £500,000.
Siddiqui's fraudulent claims primarily involved car accidents that had never happened, with multiple occupants who never existed. He would then claim for car repair costs and personal injury compensation.
Mr. Siddiqui was not terribly sophisticated. He created a company that handled all these claims, but foolishly or otherwise, claimed that company was both restoring the vehicles, and he would also make personal injury claims and rent vehicles. And so to people who've worked in insurance fraud for a number of years, these things stick out.
Once they'd collected all the evidence they could, the insurers handed over their findings to IFED to take the investigation to the next stage.
There's some things they can't do and that police officers have to do, including tracing him through his bank accounts and through names and aliases that he'd given. Once we'd traced all these activities and put them together through mobile phone records and bank account details, it was just really a question of catching him in and making sure that he was caught red-handed, as the expression goes.
By By now, there was enough evidence to move in and arrest him.
On the day of the raid, when we went in, he was watching the TV. And one of the things that was strangest to us is that amongst his various aliases and his various guises, he'd said that he was an Olympic boxer. And he was actually watching the Olympics when we came in, but it was the rowing. So we asked him about that. You know, aren't you supposed to be boxing for the country? And he said, oh yes, he'd injured himself. So he couldn't even be straight with us at that stage, even there standing in his pants.
The IFED team was able to collect a wealth of evidence.
Surrounding him were the tools of his trade. He had mobile phones with post-it notes on them in all the different names, so that if that phone went off, he'd instantly know who he was supposed to be.
With so many personas, it was hard for Siddiqui to keep track of who had put in what claim. The case proceeded to court, and Siddiqui was brought to justice.
He was charged with 11 counts of false representation under the Fraud Act and also 1 count of holding a fake national ID card.
Perhaps realising that for once he should tell the truth, Siddiqui pleaded guilty.
He got 18 months, which, considering he'd spent 2 years actually doing the crimes, he had at least 18 months to regret it.
His elaborate fantasy existence had finally been brought to an end, and he had no one to blame but himself, whoever that was.
I do wonder at the end of it, who actually knows the real Daz Siddiqui?
Things you expect on a stag night. To get a bit drunk, and maybe round the evening off with a sing-song. One thing you don't expect is whiplash, but that's just what happened on Stephen Paul's stag do. The party had barely left Newcastle before festivities came to an abrupt halt, thanks to their minibus hitting a car. Aviva's Tom Gardner was yet again on the case and investigated the claim.
Mr. Paul took out a new policy with us to insure his minibus and then contacted us several weeks later to report that he'd been in a collision with another vehicle.
Elaine Ibbotson works for the insurer's solicitors.
It was suggested that there were a group of 14 men on their way to a stag party in Edinburgh. They were travelling in the minibus, and it was alleged that shortly after starting their journey, the minibus driver had left the main road north and had pulled off, I think, to visit a shop. Shortly after leaving the main road on the approach to a roundabout, it was alleged that the minibus collided with the rear of a car.
I believe 6 ambulances attended the scene. All of the people were treated at hospital.
The accident resulted in multiple injuries, primarily whiplash. It wasn't long before the insurers heard from the would-be partygoers on the minibus.
In total, 15 claims were presented for whiplash injuries, which on a full liability basis at the time would be potentially worth over £100,000.
Because it was such a huge sum of money, the team began to look more closely at the claim. And what they found called the whole stag party story into question.
In the first place, just the number and severity of the injuries proportionate to the accident. In the second place, that the accident happened so soon after a new policy was taken out.
There's always an element of suspicion when every single occupant of both vehicles involved in a collision claims to have sustained almost identical injuries. It wasn't a huge impact one way you'd expect every single person to have been injured.
The lawyers decided to talk to all the main players and immediately encountered inconsistencies. The main claimant kept changing small details in his story.
His account really didn't ring true at all.
And there were also concerns from the police officers who had attended the accident.
Quite clearly they felt something wasn't right with the situation as they arrived at the scene.
The investigation continued and a vehicle assessor was sent to look at the damaged minibus.
One of the things that our engineers observed when they inspected the minibus was that some of the damage appeared quite old.
Serious questions were now being asked, not least why the men had set off for a meet-up with no spare clothes.
It also emerged that despite travelling to Edinburgh for a stag weekend, there was no luggage whatsoever in the minibus.
Piece by piece, the evidence was stacking up. Their story was falling apart. It seemed that the group had conspired to create a bogus accident so they could submit a massive insurance claim. The investigation was then widened to include those travelling in the car.
It became apparent that there were connections between the occupants of the two vehicles that were identified through social networking websites.
The confirmation that they knew each other was telling, but the final straw was a CCTV clip of the crash site, which showed that the accident had never occurred.
What we believe happened is that the two vehicles were damaged away from the scene, and then the accident was staged at some point and debris put onto the road to create the impression that an accident had occurred.
The Stag weekend in Edinburgh had been invented as a cover story for an audacious con trick, but it had all fallen apart like a late-night kebab. By now, there was enough evidence to take the culprits to court.
15 of the 16 people pleaded guilty and received suspended sentences. One person pleaded not guilty and he was tried by jury and later convicted.
The party was well and truly over for the Stag do, and the only cause for celebration was that time had been called on a massive insurance scam. Reaching epidemic levels, and it's costing us billions of pounds every year. Deliberate crashes, bogus personal injury claims, even phantom pets. The fraudsters are risking more and more to make a quick killing. And every year, it's adding up to £50 to your insurance bill. Insurers are fighting back, armed with covert surveillance systems.
Subject out the vehicle.
Sophisticated data analysis techniques. And highly skilled dedicated police units.
Police, don't move, stay where you are!
They're catching the criminals red-handed. All those con men, scammers and cheats on the fiddle, now they're caught in the act. And claim and shame. High-speed tangle leads to an opportunistic fraud attempt.
There was no question, and the CCTV footage proved it.
A specialist police force challenges their suspect.
From what you say, we're not going to see anything in this car, right?
And an insurer discovers where £1 million worth of fraudulent cash has gone.
We were quite shocked.
What's going on here? Smashed up cars, police, dozens of onlookers. It's chaos. That's because the police car and the small hatchback have just been involved in a severe collision on this busy North London High Street.
The accident occurred on the 21st of February 2011 in Green Lanes in Haringey, very busy road. The aftermath of the accident was quite chaotic. There were lots of people milling around. The fire engines are there, the ambulance is there treating some of the injured parties. And what we can see is that there are 3 vehicles that have been damaged in that impact.
The third vehicle involved in the crash is the large black saloon car. It was sat in the parking bay at the time of the collision. The small hatchback ploughed into it after tangling with the police car. Amongst the carnage, the car's driver in the white hooded top can be seen inspecting his mangled motor. He then wanders over to talk to a police officer.
The person that's parked the vehicle at the roadside clearly approaches the police in the footage, and one can assume that they're asking about when their vehicle can actually be moved away from the crash.
He's not just worried about the vehicle. He was in the stationary car at the time of the incident. He also had a passenger with him, seen wandering around the wreckage. The 2 men, Mehmet Ali Gul and Turan Korkmaz, suffered injuries as a result of the whack. Soon after the incident, Gull and Korkmaz both submitted personal injury claims against the insurance of the hatchback driver who was supposedly at fault.
We had claims for whiplash injury and also for treatment for physiotherapy that they'd had as a result of the accident. The two claims that we had for the alleged people in the vehicle amounted to £2,147 apiece.
In total, the insurer was facing a £4,294 bill. The paperwork began. But this was no ordinary claim. It involved a police vehicle, and because of that, the claims process hit a problem.
We needed to make some further inquiries. Specific allegations had been made regarding the fact that the car hadn't been using its blues and twos.
Blues and twos is industry speak for lights and siren. If the police car hadn't been using its blues and twos, arguments on liability for the crash could have taken place. The insurer had to check the allegation. They contacted Haringey Council, as they had a CCTV camera positioned near the crash site, which captured the whole event. If the police car had been travelling at speed without its blues and twos on, the footage would tell them. When the insurer watched the footage, this is what it saw.
Very busy road, lots of buses around, lots of people milling around. In the distance, you can actually see a police vehicle approaching. It was quite evident that the lights were on.
The allegation that the police car didn't have its blues and twos on was wrong. The CCTV captures the whole event perfectly. The driver of the hatchback seemed to be at fault. Currently hidden behind a white van, the hatchback is about to cause mayhem.
Unfortunately, there's a collision between our policyholder and the police vehicle. The subsequent impact that happens with the parked vehicle is significant.
The insurer of the small hatchback would have to pay up for the whiplash injuries suffered by Gull and Korkmaz, who were about to get out of the stationary car. They're probably a bit shocked. They'll be out in a moment. Any second now. No, they won't. And that's because...
When you study the CCTV footage, it's evident that the two claimants are nowhere near the vehicle at the time that the incident happened.
Turan Korkmaz and Mehmet Ali Gull first arrive on scene 2 minutes after the crash. There's the driver jogging up the road towards his bashed-up motor, followed by his pretend passenger. Both whiplash claims have been opportunistic attempts to make money out of a life-threatening event.
You see them approaching from quite a considerable distance away. There is absolutely no way that those two men could have been in the car at the time of the crash. There was no question. The CCTV footage proved it.
Korkmaz and Gull weren't going to get away with a free shot at the insurer.
When we repudiated the claims, we decided it was time to report it to the police so that they could consider a prosecution.
The footage was conclusive evidence. Both Turan Korkmaz and Mehmet Ali Gull received a 3-month suspended sentence and 120 hours community service.
I think it would be quite surprising to any fraudster as to the technology and the pooling of resources that is now happening within the insurance industry to actually make sure that these fraudulent claims come to an end. Fraudulent claims like this are obviously costing the honest policyholder around £50 on their premium every single year. The industry, insurers, the police are all working together to try and make sure that these people are prosecuted where necessary and brought to justice.
Fraudulent couple's jet-set lifestyle gives the game away.
The couple spend an awful lot of time going on holiday, going to the airport.
And the owner of a pink limo won't back down on price.
The vehicle was quite a tatty vehicle, actually.
CCTV has proven indispensable in the fight against insurance fraud. But there are times when more unlikely methods uncover the scammers. This is Miss Jackson, a single mother, who back in 2009 was doing her best to make ends meet by holding down a full-time job whilst also looking after 2 kids. Jackson has 2 million single-parent families. Bringing up a child on your own can be tough, not least of all financially. Luckily, there's help at hand in the form of tax credits.
Tax credits, pension credits and benefits in general are designed for those who are really in need of financial help to top up the earnings of someone who is on a low income or with childcare costs.
Miss Jackson, despite her efforts, relied upon the help of the tax credit system.
Miss Jackson was claiming to be a single mother on a very low income of around £6,000 a year. She was claiming that she was working full-time, and in addition to that, she had high childcare costs.
Money was tight for the full-time working mum, but the tax credit system would help keep their heads above water. In order to make sure that tax credits are reaching the people who need them most, HMRC do regular random checks on tax credit recipients. In 2009, Miss Jackson's name came up for one such check.
Her tax credits claim was selected for a routine examination by a tax credits inspector.
During this routine examination, the inspectors made some surprising discoveries about the financially stretched single mum. It turned out she wasn't single. She was still living with the father of her children, Gajik Manucharian. The HMRC inspectors felt there was more to be discovered.
We put the couple under covert surveillance for around 3 months. This established that the couple spent an awful lot of time shopping and going on holiday and going to the airport.
Not the usual movements of a hard-up parent receiving tax credits. What was going on? HMRC were determined to get to the bottom of it.
There came a time where we decided that we had to resort to traditional techniques, and we obtained a warrant. We went through the front door early one morning in October 2009 and arrested the suspects.
So what did HMRC discover from the raid of Jackson and Manucharian's address?
The couple were living quite an extravagant lifestyle.
The couple lived in this. They drove a couple of these. And they did indeed enjoy the odd holiday.
We discovered that Miss Jackson had a lifestyle well beyond what her declared means were. She'd recently purchased a property for around £365,000 with £150,000 going down as a deposit on it. In addition to that, she'd recently taken out a loan on a £56,000 Mercedes motor car. They spent a lot of time on holiday at locations across the world.
The couple had been enjoying the kind of luxuries that are out of reach of most tax credit recipients. Over a 3-year period, they'd spent a lot of the taxpayers' money.
Between 2006 and 2009, Jackson was able to obtain £56,000 in tax credits. Additionally to that, via her Latvian mother, she set up a fraudulent claim to generate £27,000 in pension credits and winter fuel payments.
That makes a total of £83,000 in benefits fraudulently obtained from HMRC. But the figures didn't add up. The house alone was worth 4 times as much as that. Where were the fraudsters getting the rest of the money from? Bank statements seized during the raid held a clue.
The couple were receiving significant amounts of cash deposits into their account from locations all over the UK.
It was discovered that there were deposits linked to payments to a large insurer. Looking for specialist help, HMRC invited the insurer to aid in the investigation.
I think when HMRC found this information, they knew that they were onto some other type of fraud that this couple were involved in, but I don't think they really understood the full extent of the sort of criminal activity that Jackson and Manucharian had been undertaking in the insurance industry.
Jackson and Manucharian had been running an illegal insurance racket, a criminal practice known as ghost broking. Ghost broking is a term used for an illicit insurance broker who falsifies details to take out bogus insurance policies on behalf of drivers. If involved in an accident, their innocent customers could find that they don't have valid insurance. Jackson and Manucharian were ghost broking on a massive scale.
When we started to uncover the size of the fraud that had taken place, we were quite shocked.
In total, the couple had sold over 1,500 policies, leaving in their wake hundreds of customers without valid insurance.
We really realised what we were dealing with when we had to print out 30,000 pages of documentation to cover the extent of the fraud that Jackson and Manicharan had been committing just with the Direct Line Group, let alone any of the other insurers that they'd also been placing illegal policies with. And also the point where we had to set up special call lines to deal with the impact that they'd had on innocent victims.
After 3 years of fleecing innocent customers, the couple had made almost £1 million from their illegal insurance business. Add to that the £82,000 of fraudulently obtained benefits, and it's easy to see how they lived a high life.
That was feeding a lifestyle, a criminal lifestyle, which left Manicharan and Jackson living a life of comfort and a life of privilege, while their victims were driving around in vehicles which were uninsured.
Having committed both benefit and insurance fraud, Jackson and Manicharan were facing a double whammy in court.
Manicharan received 5 years and 2 months imprisonment. That was broken down into 3 years for insurance fraud and 2 years, 2 months for tax fraud. Jackson received 5 years imprisonment, and that was broken down into 2 years for insurance fraud, 2 years and 2 months for tax fraud, and 18 months for benefit fraud. We have got powers available to us under the Proceeds of Crime Act to recover any assets that criminals have obtained from involvement in criminal activity. In this particular case, we will look to recover what we can from these defendants.
As a result of the actions of people like Jackson and Manicharan, we're all paying more money at a time when really we can ill afford to pay more money for our insurance premiums. For the most part, I would advise people, if the deal is too good to be true, it probably is.
Insurance fraud is on the rise, and if you have insurance of any kind, you're footing the bill. But the fraudsters have an ominous enemy.
IFED is a 35-strong unit that works tirelessly to hunt down and prosecute insurance fraudsters wherever they may be throughout England and Wales.
Through a combination of investigation, industry connections and surprise, they've made over 300 arrests and stopped millions of pounds from going to the criminals. Money which ultimately goes back in our pockets.
It's highly likely now, if you commit any insurance fraud, you will get caught.
Stay where you are!
Today, IFED is raiding 2 addresses linked to another suspected ghost broker. The 2 addresses are just a few miles apart. DS Mullish is with the team going to the main raid location.
The plan today is we can arrest and search the premises of a suspect in relation to what we suspect to be involved in what we call ghost broking. Key evidence would be computers and any device capable of storing data, together with documentation relating to insurance policies.
IFED rendezvous with the local officers supporting today's raid. It's 7:49 a.m. The 6-strong team enters the suspect's address.
Oh, hi. Warren here, City London Police.
Within seconds, the door is opened. IFED recognises its suspect.
Anyone else on the premises? Someone's in there, though?
My wife.
Right, is this a... Two lounge, we'll explain why we're here.
Got a warrant to search this premises and to arrest you. You don't have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention when questioned something which you later rely on in court.
Sure.
Anything you do say may be taken in evidence.
Okay.
Do you understand that?
Yeah, sure, sir.
DS Mullish, concerned that the suspect might tip off the other raid location, decides to round up the suspect's phones.
Where's your mobile phone? Turn those off for me. Is there a password, a number for this phone? And for your BlackBerry, is there a password for that?
Yes. All 4 of the suspect's mobile phones are now switched off. For the time being, his lines of communication are cut.
Leave that there, and I'm just I will seize them.
At the second raid location, DC Cooley and the team are falling into position outside the property. IFED team has assistance from 2 local officers.
Good morning. Morning. Hello, I'm Declan Malone from the City of London Police. Certainly, yes, sir. Show you my ID. It's okay. What, can I come in and explain? Yes, please. something? Please come in. Yeah.
What it is, Mr. is we've got a warrant that's been issued by the City of London Magistrates Court, which allows us to search the premises.
Yes, please.
It's with regard to what they call ghost brokers, which is insurance brokers that don't really exist.
Right.
And they advertise and people buy the insurance, but then the insurance is worthless.
DC Cooley discovers that the occupant of the property is the suspect's dad, and that the suspect used to live here.
So does he still have a bedroom here? I think we'll be particularly interested in looking at that.
Yes, please.
Thanks very much. Yeah.
Confident that the raid location is safe, IFED dismisses the local officers.
Good luck, James.
Yes, sir.
DC Cooley and DC Malone head upstairs to begin a search for potential evidence in the suspect's old bedroom. They start with the big stuff, computers.
You were saying that this computer here had been used by at some point or another?
Used it before.
I think we're going to have to take that hard drive, so...
Sure, yeah, why not?
The computer is seized, and its contents will be analysed by IFED specialist IT investigators. The first piece of potential evidence is in the bag. DS Mullish warns his suspect against doing a runner.
So I'm going to be relying upon you to cooperate.
Yeah, 100%.
He is very fast.
What a stunner. 16 seats, fibre optic mood lighting, flat screen TVs, a glitter wall, and even a skylight to pop up from when you want to whoop at boring people not invited to your party. It's not the kind of vehicle you nip to the shops in, but you could run a business hiring it out to revellers. That's what one man was doing with his 16-seater Lincoln Navigator, pictured here.
The claimant had purchased the vehicle for job purposes and was using it for private hire and parties and all the usual nice social activities that take place within a limousine.
Cruising around in an eye-catching motor seems like a good way to make a living. So you can imagine the owner's disappointment when his pink cash cow was taken off the road after being involved in a collision.
This was a straightforward road traffic accident whereby our insured had basically come out of a minor road, exited onto a roundabout and straight into collision with the limousine.
Straightforward or not, the damage was severe.
The damage to the limousine was allegedly quite extensive to the off side of the vehicle and also to the near side front bonnet. The claimant's solicitors had organised for an engineer to inspect the vehicle, and the engineer's report indicated a value of £21,000. The extent of the damage rendered the vehicle a write-off, a total loss.
The insurer set about processing the claim for the limo owner. The paperwork was well underway when, suddenly, the insurer halted the claim. An inconsistency had been spotted.
The owner alleged that he needed a replacement vehicle for work purposes because he was without his limousine, but very oddly, rather than replacing his limousine with a like-for-like vehicle, which you'd expect he would need for the prestige jobs that he indicated that he needed to do, he hired a Mercedes C-Class.
Now, this is maths I can handle. The damaged pink limo had 16 passenger seats. A Mercedes C-Class, no more than 4. If the owner of the party vehicle business was using the Merc for work, he was regularly leaving 12 party animals stranded on the curbside. With suspicions aroused, the insurer went looking for hard facts and figures.
We decided to undertake a further examination of the vehicle.
The findings were surprising.
The vehicle was quite a tatty vehicle, actually, for the interior purposes, and certainly not one you would expect to be out on prestige jobs for parties and obviously those ladies who like pink limousines. The assessor had come back, or the engineer had come back to say that, in his opinion, the vehicle was actually only worth £4,800 as opposed to the £21,000.
The insurer's valuation of the vehicle was a fraction of the amount being claimed. However, the limo owner wouldn't back down from his £21,000 valuation of the vehicle. But his resistance was about to be broken. The The insurer discovered the limo owner had taken out his insurance policy just a month before the crash.
When the claimant had incepted his policy of insurance for the limousine just 1 month prior to this incident, he had indicated to insurers that his value of the limousine was £10,000.
So the limo owner himself had declared that the car was worth no more than £10,000, less than half the £21,000 he was trying to claim for it. The game was up.
It's incredibly important that we stop exaggerated claims. Opportunistic claims make up the bulk of fraudulent claims, and it's costing the innocent motorist money.
The pink limo owner ended up settling for a tiny fraction of the £21,000 he'd been chasing, saving every honest motorist from unnecessarily paying out more for their vehicle insurance.
The Association of British Insurers have indicated that last year alone, £90 million worth of fraud was uncovered from motor accidents. It's a huge problem in this economic climate to have insurance premiums increase because of this type of exaggeration.
Today, IFED is executing a double raid. It's searching 2 addresses linked to a man suspected of selling false insurance policies. DS Mullish,
Turn those off for me.
having cut the suspect's lines of communication,
Is there a password for this phone?
is ready to begin a thorough search for potential evidence of fraudulent activity.
Is there any documentation that you can point us towards in relation to insurance policies?
Try and dig some stuff out here.
The suspect responds to DS Mullish's request by handing over a clear plastic box full to the brim with documents. Almost immediately, his attention is drawn to a bright red vehicle registration document.
This document I'm about to seize is of particular interest because it actually relates to the suspected fraudulent name of the company or business. The name on this document is the exact name of what we believe the suspect has been operating under. Potentially a key bit of evidence, yes.
A few miles away, DC Cooley is studying documents found in the suspect's old bedroom at his father's house. He has a lot to get through. DC Cooley thinks he's onto something. Within the mass of paperwork, he finds what could be damning evidence of fraud.
Now, this is interesting. It's a letter written by the suspect to an insurance company clarifying the position on someone else's insurance policy.
The suspect is not registered with the Financial Services Authority. This means that it's illegal for him to act as a broker.
He even cheekily claims that the police stopped him on the street and then verified that the insurance was correct.
DC Cooley and DC Malone have finished their search.
Seize it all in one.
Yeah.
The documents and computers seized will be added to the exhibits found at the suspect's house.
Yeah.
Back at the suspect's property, the search is about to move outside.
2 cars downstairs that need doing 18s on. He's given us consent.
Right.
We can have a quick look
Yeah.
at both of
Is
them.
there anything in the cars?
Just the basic CDs.
The team decide to take a look for themselves. Before heading outside, DS Mullish has a warning for the suspect.
Yeah, we will do the 101s. I'm not going to handcuff you, as my colleague said.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be relying upon you to cooperate.
Yeah, 100%.
He is very fast. I'm even faster.
Okay.
This is it, is it? Right, if you don't mind just standing.
Nothing is found in the black vehicle. Before searching the second car, DS Mullish double-checks with the suspect about its contents.
From what you say, we're not going to see anything in this car, right? Oh, if you want to stay there.
Yeah, sure.
DS Mullish doesn't have to go any further than the glove compartment before finding potential evidence of fraud.
Steve, did you bring any bags? The document seized from the suspect's vehicle is a copy of an insurance document in another person's name other than the suspect.
The search is complete. IFED takes the suspect away for further questioning.
Put your seatbelt on for us. Yeah. Oh, we've had a great result today. We found the suspect at the address. We've found great evidence. And we've also, where we simultaneously executed a warrant at another address, we've also found relevant documentation there. Very good evidence to support our investigation.
Insurance fraud in the UK is reaching epidemic levels, and it's costing us billions of pounds every year. Deliberate crashes, bogus personal injury claims, even phantom pets. The fraudsters are risking more and more to make a quick killing. And every year, it's adding up to £50 to your insurance bill. Insurers are fighting back, armed with covert surveillance systems.
Subject out the vehicle.
Sophisticated data analysis techniques. And highly skilled dedicated police units. They're catching the criminals red-handed. All those con men, scammers and cheats on the fiddle, now they're caught in the act and claimed and shamed. A specialist police unit coordinates a swoop on 3 suspected fraudsters.
Open the door, I'll get forced open.
An angry road user tries to defraud his victim in Bristol.
He was stationary when a bus has hit him in the rear.
And a pillar of the community comes crashing down.
His reputation's gone, he's lost his career, and it really wasn't a risk worth taking.
This guy is having a bad day at the office. 5 minutes ago, he was driving this bus through the busy streets of Liverpool. But now he's calling his employers to tell them he's just been involved in a crash. His bus hit a parked white transit van. The strike to the van was forceful enough to injure its occupants. Unloading in the back of the van was Melvin Williams. In the driver's seat was owner Nathan Montgomery.
Mr Montgomery alleged that an Aviva bus had hit his parked van when he was sat in the driver's seat and a passenger also in the van with him, and said he'd been jolted sideways and backwards, and he'd also hit his head on the windscreen. He described quite a violent collision.
After exchanging details, the white van and its rattled occupants drive away. Soon after the incident, the bus company received 2 personal injury claims from Montgomery and Williams.
We then got 2 claims from the driver and the passenger, both saying that they were injured. We got medical evidence for Mr Montgomery. He had a whiplash-type injury and a contusion to the head. We never got medical evidence for the passenger. He just said he'd suffered a whiplash injury.
Often, whiplash injuries don't come cheap.
The reserve for both claims was £24,000, which included costs.
It was a big blow for the bus company, especially as they don't use an external insurer for incidents like this. They self-insure, paying out of their own pockets. As part of the claims process, the bus driver who caused the collision was asked to provide his version of events. On receiving them, the bus company halted the case.
When we got the claim form from the driver, he said it was a very minor collision. He'd just misjudged it and caught the wing mirror of the parked van.
It certainly didn't sound like the kind of collision that would lead to a bash to the head and a double whiplash claim. Crucially, there was one last comment from the driver.
The driver also said he didn't think there was anybody in the vehicle. He wasn't certain, but he didn't think there was.
It was a statement that suggested the whole claim was a lie. So which account was true? A white van containing a pair of blokes being violently jolted, or an empty van getting a clipped wing mirror? How could the bus company tell? This is how. Every Aviva bus has more eyes than a spider. The bus that struck the white van was no exception. Somewhere on one of its 9 CCTV camera angles was the truth.
We interrogated the CCTV because obviously the driver had said he didn't think there was anybody in the van.
The bus company queued up the tape and took a look. This is the footage from 8 seconds before the crash. The bus is approaching the white van. This is the moment of impact.
On the CCTV, you couldn't tell whether there was anybody in the van. It looked as though there wasn't, but it wouldn't have proved it conclusively.
The cameras didn't seem to have captured any images that could settle the case. Before giving up and paying Montgomery and Williams, the bus company took another look at the footage. This time, they spotted something in the doorway of a nearby house.
We went through the whole of the CCTV and eventually spotted 2 gentlemen coming out of a house straight after the collision.
Seen here, top left.
I believed it was both Mr. Montgomery and Mr. Williams because we saw these two gentlemen then talking to the driver.
3 seconds after the incident, the bus's side camera had caught 2 people emerging from a house, seen here top left. 2 seconds later, the rear camera captures Montgomery and Williams walking up to the driver from the direction of the house. Suspecting that the 2 people leaving the house were Montgomery and Williams, the bus company challenged the claim.
Once I'd looked at the CCTV footage, I wrote to the claimant's solicitors and said that both claimants were trying to defraud Aviva and told them to discontinue. They then asked for the CCTV, which I sent to them.
On receiving the footage, the solicitors representing Montgomery and Williams agreed with the bus company.
It was just an opportunist claim. They saw the bus hit the van and obviously saw pound signs and decided to put in a fraudulent claim.
The bus company weren't going to let them off the hook. They went after Montgomery and Williams.
We decided we wanted a prosecution. We got in touch with Liverpool police. We sent them the CCTV. They went out and arrested both claimants and they were both charged and both pleaded guilty.
Montgomery and Williams each received 150 hours of community service and 12 months probation.
Hopefully it will deter these 2 claimants from trying anything again. They've now got a criminal record which may affect them in all sorts of ways through their life.
IFED roots out a suspect from under a bed.
Is there anything here that shouldn't be here?
A dishonest driver executes a reckless manoeuvre.
Look at the footage again and again just to see whether you're missing something.
And some faulty plumbing flushes out a fraudster in Bolton.
Police officers are not above the law.
Insurance fraud is on the rise, and if you have insurance of any kind, you're footing the bill. But fraudsters need to watch their back.
IFED is a 35-strong unit that works tirelessly to hunt down and prosecute insurance fraudsters wherever they may be throughout England and Wales.
Through a combination of investigation, industry connections and surprise, they've made over 300 arrests and stopped millions of pounds from going to the criminals. Money which ultimately goes back in our pockets.
It's highly likely now, if you commit any insurance fraud, you will get caught.
Today, IFED is out in force. 2 teams aim to make a total of 3 arrests at 3 different locations. They're aiming to arrest 3 people for taking out bogus insurance policies and for staging crashes in order to make money from the claims. A practice otherwise known as crash for cash.
We're going to go to the address, we're going to execute a search warrant, we're going to seize as much evidence as we can.
The team being led by DC Kate Sibley has arrived at its first raid location. From their research, the team expects to find the house crowded.
Oh, police! Open the door.
Morning, police officers.
We come in and have a chat.
Okay. How many are upstairs? 7. Yeah. Okay.
With so many people in the house, DC Sibley is facing an impromptu identity parade. She quickly flushes out her suspect.
Excuse me a second, can I ask your name, please? The reason we're here, we're investigating a matter involving a staged car crash, okay? Where false insurance claims have been made. And you have made one of those false insurance claims because you were a passenger in one of the alleged vehicles.
You're under arrest for conspiracy to defraud. That's the same thing.
He does not like anything. Who is in charge here?
I am.
You're okay. What's your position?
I'm a detective.
Do you have the arrest warrant?
We don't need an arrest warrant.
A few streets away, the IFED team, being led by PS John Schickel, is hoping to find the second suspect at their raid address.
It's the police! Open the door, else it'll get forced open. Hello.
Morning.
Who's here, mate? Who's in the house, mate?
Police. Can you open up, police? Police, mate.
Morning. City Police.
I'm going to make your way downstairs. Go into the lounge, please.
The property has several bedrooms. In one of them, P.S. Shakel finds a relative of the suspect.
Do you know?
Yeah, he's my brother.
He's your brother. Where's your brother now?
I don't know.
Well, we need to talk to him. Because your brother keeps on putting this address down as his home address, the police are always going to come back here. And we're going to keep coming back. So you must have his phone number. Could you give him a call, please?
P.S. Shakel asked the other occupants of the house about the missing suspect.
Does anybody else know? I presume you must do.
We are his siblings, but we don't know who he is though. We don't have a phone number or nothing like that.
Are you absolutely sure?
Yeah.
Why haven't you got his number?
Why should we have his number after he puts us through all this?
Till we talk to him, I'm afraid this is just going to keep happening. So we need to get hold of him. So if you do have his number or know where he is, now's the time to tell us.
The man they came for is proving to be elusive.
So we're now going to search the house looking for that.
No.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
IFED begins a search of the property. They're looking for information about the suspect and any potential evidence of fraudulent activity. Within various rooms of the property, IFED finds thousands of pounds, mostly in £50 notes.
John, there's about 10 grand in one of these rooms, you know.
I'm going to count this, but I want you to be here when I count it. Because I don't want someone saying there was 2,000 quid there and there wasn't.
Volumes of cash like this are suspicious, but not conclusive evidence of fraud. P.S. Shakel hones in on a stash of driving licences found in another room.
Part of what we've found in the wardrobe is several licences pertaining to different people. There's copies of the licences in different names and addresses.
Multiple driving licences are seen as one of the tools of the trade for a fraudster, allowing them to obtain many insurance policies.
We suspect it's fraud-related.
From information discovered in the property,
hello?
P.S. Shakel has a phone number for the suspect.
Is this, I'm a city police officer. We're currently executing a search warrant. Your family aren't very happy with you. You listen to me. You have put your family in this position. We've gone to court and got a search warrant. We are going to execute the search warrant and we're going to take anything that we believe belongs to you. Can you either get round here now or I'll meet you up at the police station? But we need to talk to you. You're causing your family too much stress. He's actually living somewhere else and he's making his way to talk to us. So we'll have to wait and see.
This is Inspector Mohammed Razak, a police officer who was known for spearheading a zero-tolerance crime clampdown in his neighbourhood in Bolton. Even the strong arm of the law can't hold back floodwaters. In 2008, Razak contacted his insurer, Allianz, after his house had sprung a leak.
In May 2008, we received an escape of water claim from Mr. Mohammed Razak related to a burst central heating pipe up in a bedroom, causing damage downstairs. We sent assessors out and they valued the damage at around £1,200.
Razak disagreed with the insurer's estimate, feeling they had massively undervalued the damage caused by the flood.
Mr. Razak disputed this and provided his own estimates, two of them, in the region of £8,000. We referred this back to the assessors and they amended their report and said there were aspects to the damage which they hadn't accounted for and they gave us authority to proceed towards settlement. So Mr. Razak was paid the full sum of nearly £8,000.
With his estimate of £8,000 paid in full, Razak would be able to sort out his water-damaged home and get back to keeping the riffraff off the streets of Bolton. It seemed that Mohammed Razak was an unlucky man. A while after the first incident, he suffered another flood. But Allianz, who had footed the recent £8,000 bill, were unknowingly off the hook. By this time, Razak was using a different insurer. He submitted his latest claim to them. An unlucky series of events, but that's what insurance is there for. Unexpectedly, 3 years later, Allianz found themselves digging out the details of Razak's old £8,000 claim.
August 2011, we were contacted by Greater Manchester Police, who advised us that Mr. Razak was subject to an internal investigation relating to a number of potential offences. And they asked us for details of the claim.
How could there be a problem? Allianz's own assessors had twice examined Razak's claim, and they'd been convinced of its validity. Why were the police interested in the event? They had made a very suspicious discovery about Razak's second flood claim.
It turns out that Mr. Razak had actually used the same estimates and tried to make another claim for the same damage with another insurance company.
Even if his original claim for £8,000 had been genuine, it was deemed extremely unlikely that the second flood would be created under identical circumstances and lead to identical damage estimates. Mohammed Razak was under the spotlight.
We supported the police investigation by providing them with all relevant documentation relating to the claim. As a senior police officer, Mr. Razak's honesty and integrity should be beyond reproach. Sadly, in this instance, it wasn't.
His second carbon copy claim was found to be bogus.
It may well be that Mr. Razak did suffer a genuine incident in regards to the original water leak, but once he realised that he could obtain more money than he was entitled to, probably thought it was a good idea.
It was just the tip of the iceberg. Razak was also scamming money from mortgage companies and submitted other bogus claims to various insurers. Greater Manchester Police were investigating Mr. Razak for £46,000 worth of fraud.
It's not very common for us to see police officers committing insurance fraud, but it does happen. But what we have to understand is that police officers are not above the law and will be subject to the same treatment as the next person if they commit insurance fraud.
When the case went to court, Mohammed Razak was found guilty and sentenced to 18 months imprisonment.
This case highlights the fact that insurance fraud could be committed by anyone. But likewise, it also demonstrates that insurance companies do work with the police, and you may get away with it once, but you try again, there's a very high chance you're going to get caught. Clearly, Mr. Razak thought at the time that he would get away with this. He wouldn't have done this otherwise. As a result, his reputation's gone, he's lost his career, his standing in the community, which he worked so hard for, is gone, and it really wasn't a risk worth taking.
Today, IFED is executing a triple raid, looking for 3 suspects under investigation for allegedly selling illegal motor insurance. One of the suspects has been arrested. Another has been located but is still outstanding. The third suspect is at an address yet to be visited. At the first raid location, DC Sibley has her suspect in cuffs, and a search of the premises is underway.
Do we know what room is his upstairs?
Yeah, he's showing me off. There's one straight in front of you.
Okay.
In her search for evidence, she focuses on one of the bedrooms.
I found a pad of paper with various names in here. I'm just trying to work out what they are. A lot of information in relation to different vehicles and post-it notes, and I don't know whether it's to do with staged accidents or ghost broking. Alex, what do you reckon on this lot? Got all this.
Yeah. Something, Money Supermarket, okay, so
Yeah.
Confused.com, AXA, Go Compare.
Exactly. You've got everything in
So
here.
it's insurance related.
Yeah, it is. I'm having it. So I think I'll be seizing this.
With potential evidence of fraud in the bag, IFED takes its first suspect away for questioning.
We've managed to effect one arrest, who's currently at the police station. Made a thorough search of the premises, found a lot of documentation in relation to ghost broking and what we believe are staged accidents. We seized a laptop, can be used for a number of mobile phones, all of which will have to be examined. Hopefully we'll find a bit more evidence on those. We've left the premises and we're now moving on to the next address.
IFED expects to find its third suspect in this property.
open the door.
Open the door, Flower. What happened? Calm
We're
down,
police
open the door.
officers, can you open the door?
And I'll put the door in.
Morning.
Hello, is this your house? Who lives here with you? My husband and Cam, not a lamb. No.
Anybody else in the house with you at the moment?
No.
No, just you on your own, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm looking for...
Why?
Because I need to speak to him. Do you know him?
What?
Do you know him? Not why, do you know him?
What happened? Tell me.
No, I need to speak to him. Does he live here? No. Where does he live?
I don't know.
You don't know. I need to speak to him. Do you know him?
The suspect is found hiding under a bed. IFED's DC Cooley escorts the handcuffed suspect to the lounge.
Right, I'm arresting you on suspicion of conspiracy to defraud. You do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention when questioning something you later rely on in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence. Do you understand? Okay. Where are all your documents and things? Upstairs? Papers? How long have you lived here?
It's nearly 2 years.
Nearly 2 years. Is there anything here that shouldn't be here that we're going to find?
Drugs, cash, nothing. Weapons.
Sure?
Yeah.
Okay. There's nothing for you to be worried about. Just don't lie to us.
With the suspect arrested, IFED can begin the search for evidence of suspected fraudulent motor insurance claims.
We are going to be taking your laptop. Just to let you know. I found a Visa debit card in our suspect's wallet, not in his name. I believe linked to the other address, but that's something we'll have to check out. It just makes the case a lot stronger, the fact there is a link there. We're not just coming to two totally separate addresses.
At PS Schickel's raid address, the search is coming to an end.
Yeah, it's been very successful. We've had over 40 exhibits that we've seized. That includes money, we think over £10,000. We've received or seized numerous driving licences, vehicle documentation, insurance policies, claims, different crib sheets.
And the outstanding suspect PS Schickel phoned earlier has handed himself in.
We're just going to go now to a local police station where the suspect has arrived, where I'm about to arrest him and interview him and see what he has to say. So we're extremely pleased.
A few streets away, DC Sibley sends her suspect away for further questioning.
Hi, John, all right? We've got number 3 as well. He tried to hide beside the bed, but the uniform jumped on him, so we've got him. So you got a full house? It's a good result. We weren't expecting to get 3 out of 3, if we're honest with you, possibly 2, but we've got all 3, so it's a good result for us today.
What do you do when a 12-ton bus slams into the back of you at 30 miles an hour? The owner of this recently rear-ended car decided to have a stern word with the bus driver.
This is an incident that occurred in Bristol on the 7th of January 2012, around about 1:15 in the afternoon. The third party in his statement advises that he was stationary when a bus has hit him in the rear.
After exchanging details, the bus and car driver continue their journeys.
The third party submitted a claim arising from this incident for injuries to his neck and back, his leg and his foot. He submitted a claim for the damage to his vehicle in the region of £2,600 and also a claim for alternative hire of a vehicle while his own was being repaired. The total of the claims submitted was around about £3,700.
The bus company started to process the car owner's claim. Pretty straightforward. Bus hits much smaller car, wallop, hand over the cash. But first, just a couple of things.
As we would do with all claims of this nature, we decided to thoroughly investigate this just to make sure that we're paying the correct amounts and the circumstances are as the third party is stating.
With the risk of a heavy financial blow, the bus company took measures to fully investigate all aspects of the claim. This included looking closely at the accident and medical reports submitted by the claimant.
When he's reported the circumstances to his medical expert, he's actually advised that he was still in motion when he was hit in the rear by the bus. The statements given by the third party to his medical expert and the statement given to us initially differ significantly in the version of events.
This left the bus company suspicious. Before they could settle the claim, they would have to straighten out the car owner's story. They called upon the 360-degree coverage of the bus's exterior cameras. The footage starts off innocently enough. The bus driver sets off from Bristol Temple Meads train station. The claimant first appears in view on a dual carriageway.
The CCTV footage shows the vehicle overtaking the bus, then stopping shortly ahead of the bus, straddling both lanes.
Possibly due to the manoeuvre executed by the claimant, the bus driver engages in a brief exchange with him.
The bus driver sounds his horn at this driver and goes round him and continues.
The bus company were originally looking to see what happened in the moments leading up to the crash. But they were now watching a potential road rage incident. Shortly, they were going to find out who was at fault for the collision.
The third party in his statement advises that he was stationary when a bus has hit him in the rear, but the third party is neglected to advise what's happened in the build-up towards the incident or what happened in the aftermath.
This is what happened. Seconds after their first exchange, the claimant overtakes and pulls in front of the 12-ton bus. What occurs next is incredible. The claimant executes a triplet of hard-braking maneuvers. 1, 2, 3, causing the crash. The innocent bus driver had no chance of protecting himself, his vehicle and passengers against the reckless actions of the claimant.
It's a case where you look at the footage again and again just to see whether you're missing something. You begin to second guess whether you're viewing the footage properly, but looking at it, we can see no reason why he braked.
Guess what? The bus company refused to pay the claimant.
What did happen was we alerted the police of our concerns regarding this matter, and subsequently the third party was prosecuted, fined £265 and received 7 points on his licence. Whenever a motorist deliberately carries out an action, whether it be out of anger or to commit a potentially fraudulent claim, the key thing to remember is that it does put people at risk, and this is what has happened in this situation. One day it could be injury or damage to property, another day it could be you that's at risk.